Hey everybody, it's Boo Ray Perry from Tampa, Florida, and today we're going to talk about the 8 things that Fuji gets right, and the 3 things that I still think they get wrong. All right, don't forget to check out my podcast. It's called Photobomb, and it's available anywhere that you can find podcasts. I've been doing it for about 5 years with my friend Gary Hughes. Comes out every single week, and it's a great podcast. I guarantee you will enjoy it. Also, be sure and join my group on Facebook. It's called Pro Photo Talk with Boo Ray Perry, and it's a great family of people who talk about photography and the art and gear, and you can ask questions, and everyone's nice to each other and respectful. So we would love to have you be a part of that group as well. All the links are below in the description. And don't forget that all the stuff I talk about, all the gear that I carry is all listed on my gear page. So you can just go to my gear page and see everything that I use. And if you click on one of those links and you end up buying something, I get a couple of dollars, and that helps me to support this channel. All right, let's get started. I recently made the switch to Fuji. I was a Canon shooter for about 12 years. I got the, excuse me, the X100V. I've actually had 3 of these cameras. I had the X100S, and then I got the X100F, and now I have the X100V. And every time I upgraded, I just loved the camera even more. And every time I upgraded, I kept fooling around with the idea, what if I went to Fuji? What if I went to Fuji? So I did a lot of research. I compared Canon to Fuji and Fuji to Canon over and over and over the course of several years until I eventually made the jump. And I made a video on my channel, I'll put the link right up there, about just the immediate reasons why when I decided to go to mirrorless, I went Fuji instead of Canon. But what I want to talk about today are just my observations, having used the camera now for a couple of months, of the things that I think Fuji gets right, the things that I like about Fuji, and also a few things that I still think they haven't quite nailed. And these are in no particular order. All right, let's get started. The first thing on the list is going to be color. And Fuji is famously known for their color. They're the only camera manufacturer that actually used to make film, because Kodak doesn't make cameras anymore. Well, Kodak really doesn't make much of anything anymore. They just lease their name out to other people. And Fuji, of course, made film for years and years and years, and still does. I guess Fuji still makes. Sure, they make film because they have the instant cameras, right? And Fuji's color is just a little bit different than everybody else's color. I guess everybody's color is a little bit different than everybody else's color. And to be honest, I got used to Canon, and that became my color. And I've always been very happy with Canon's color. But the minute I switched to Fuji, I started seeing a little something different in my work, just something I liked a little bit more. And I can also say that my wife, once I got the X100V, insisted that all my pictures of her be taken with this camera. And my wife she's no photographer expert. She just knew that her skin looked better when I took a picture with a Fuji camera than when I took a picture with my Canon cameras. Not that it didn't look great with my Canon cameras, but there was something about it. She said, I like the way that Fuji makes me look. And that's a big deal. When you have women who tell you that they like the way the camera makes them look, you have to pay attention to that. Number 2 on the list, and right along with color, is the film simulations that Fuji offers. Now, I shoot professionally, and when I'm shooting professionally, I shoot in RAW. And so then in post, I can do whatever I want to it. But when I'm not shooting professionally, when I'm just shooting for myself and I'm using my X100V, I usually just shoot JPEGs. Because one of the things with a travel camera and a vacation camera is you want to remove as many steps as possible. You don't want to have a lot of barriers in the way to taking pictures. You don't want to be like, well, if I take more pictures, that's more pictures I'm going to have to work on in RAW and open up and correct. And you don't want to remove those barriers and just get back to the joy of photography. So I tend to shoot in JPEG. And to be honest, the pictures that come straight out of the camera in JPEG are so good that I can't tell you how many times I've opened up a RAW image and just not been able to do anything to it that makes it look better than what Fuji's doing with the JPEG, right? So I use the film simulations a lot, and in my case, I fell in love with one film simulation in particular, and it is Classic Chrome, because Fuji's Classic Chrome simulation mimics the look of classic Kodachrome film, which is the film that I came up shooting when I was a kid, and is really the film and the color of my life. My memories are in Kodachrome. because my parents' pictures were shot on Kodachrome film. So that's a color that really resonates with me. And one of the great things about with my professional camera is that even when I'm working professionally and I'm shooting in RAW, I'm also backing up in JPEG. And so I can set the camera to Chrome. So when I'm looking through the camera at my images as I'm shooting them, I'm seeing them in Chrome. And then when I import them into Capture One, using the auto function, it will keep that Chrome setting. I can still change it if I want to. I can go back to one of the other settings if I want to, but I can just keep it on Chrome. It'll keep it right there for me. So it's actually probably the most dramatic shift that Fuji has had in my work is that I'm going to be using classic Chrome a lot. I'm going to be using it for all of my portraits work, all of my family portrait work. I don't know if I'm going to use it for headshots. I might just keep using standard for headshots, and my wedding work and my bar mitzvah work, event work. I might keep using Chrome for all of that because I just really love that simulation. Third on my list is functionality. Fuji cameras are famous for their buttons and their dials. Nobody else puts as many buttons and dials on their camera as Fuji does. Well, I say that, but I think Olympus piles a lot of buttons and dials on their cameras as well. They put a lot of buttons and dials on their cameras, and it's one of the things that people love about Fuji. But they also have full functionality on everything. There are so many buttons on this camera. There's a dial on the back and there's a dial on the front. And both of those dials can be clicked in and then they change and become something else. And there's a button on the front and there's a bunch of buttons on the back and there's a D-pad and there's a swipe screen. And all of these things can be adjusted and set up to do exactly what you want them to do. So your camera becomes very much a personal experience. Now, I had my Canon camera set up to do exactly what I wanted it to do as well. But with a Canon camera, or even with the high-end Fuji cameras like the X-H1 or the new GFX 300 or 100, I'm not sure. I'll put right here what it is. They've added screens to those cameras, and I actually don't like the screen. I don't want the screen. I want the big dials and I want the big buttons. I like the tactile feeling of the dials, grabbing them, turning them. I enjoy it. And it also, I think, makes it a little bit easier to use the camera. I first picked up my very first Fuji camera as an X-T3, and it was alone, and I went out and I shot a job with it. And when I started shooting the job, I guess I didn't have it set up right. And I couldn't get it to do something that I wanted it to do using an auto mode. And there was a moment of panic. And then I just went, oh, no problem. And I looked down at the dials on the top of the camera, and I just set my aperture with my aperture ring. I set my ISO with my ISO ring. I set my shutter speed with my shutter speed ring. I went full manual very quickly and then got the shot and continued to work because it's all right there on the camera. Big dials for everything that you need. You know, in a pinch, you can always just swap to manual mode very quickly and very easily with a Fuji camera. I'm a big fan of it. And also, I love that with the X-T4, they added the swipe screen here, but they didn't get rid of the D-pad. Now, they didn't do that with the 100. With the 100V, as you can see here, they got rid of the D-pad. And I really wish they had kept the D-pad because I know the swipe screen is the future, and that's great, but it's just not as convenient as using a D-pad to go in 4 directions. Swiping on that screen is not nearly as convenient as just hitting that D-pad. So I wish they had kept it on the 100V, but that's okay. It's still a fantastic camera, so I'm okay with that. But I'm really glad that they kept it on the X-T4 even when they put in the swipe screen. Number 4 on my list of things that Fuji gets right is style. Yeah, is style really important? Right? I mean, it's a tool, right? The camera is a tool. What does it matter what the style is? Well, it matters because we're photographers, right? We are artists, craftsmen. We care about what something looks like. That's why we take pictures. We like what things look like and we want to capture them. We want to preserve them. So having a camera that is a joy to look at is actually a very important factor. If you go and you look up on YouTube people who are giving out reviews of the X100 line of cameras, right? It doesn't matter which one it is. They are all going to talk about, they'll say it's a joy in the hand. And part of the joy of having these cameras in your hand is the way that they look. We love the dials. We love the big dials. You know, we love the way they look, like this one looking like a classic rangefinder camera. And some of my most popular videos are the ones where I just talk about the accessories that I put on my cameras, because we so are enamored by the look of this camera that we go out and we get special, leather things for it and a special strap for it, and we get the special thumb. I never was that way with my Canon cameras. My Canon cameras were just tools, plain and simple. That's all they were. It's so bad that I'm actually using a strap. I'm using a Peak Design strap on the X-T4, right? And I strap it in here at the bottom and I hang it at my side. I sling it. And I could use a black Rapid strap, which is specifically made for doing that. But the Peak Design strap is so beautiful with its big buckles that I'm actually using the Peak Design instead. That's how much style affects the Fuji world. Yeah, I'm going to show you. Wait a minute. I've got the thing right here. Where's my strap? Here it is. Right? So look at the buckle, right? Look at the beautiful buckle on this strap, right? Who cares? And the time may come that I go back to using my black Rapid string, strap, my swing strap, my sling strap, I should say. But right now, I have this beautiful, beautiful strap on my beautiful, beautiful camera, and all is well with the world. I've said this many times. The older you get, the less you have opportunities for just joy, the way that you did when you were younger, like the joy you had when you got your car, that sort of thing. So don't discount the little joy that you have in your life. And I take a little bit of joy out of pulling my camera out of the case and having it look cool, or at least cool to me. So style, well, style is the thing that Fuji gets right, and without a doubt, in my opinion, gets better than anybody else on the market. Number 5 on my list of things that Fuji gets right is updates. Oh, I got my new camera, I bring it home, right? I get the app on my phone, and I set up the app for my new camera, and suddenly the app's like, oh, you have an update for your camera. It downloads the app, and then it loads it into the camera. I didn't have to plug it into my computer. I didn't have to do anything. That's just cool, right? The whole app instantly transferring from the phone to the camera, keeping your camera updated. And it's especially cool when you're talking about Fuji, which is a company that is known for really pushing updates to their cameras and constantly improving their cameras, right? Being a company that constantly improves your camera, well, that's great, but it starts to lose some of its luster if it's a huge pain when you have to actually do the update. It isn't with Fuji. So simple to update. They absolutely have nailed that one. Number 7 on my list of things that Fuji gets right is uniformity of lenses. You see, Fuji makes 2 types of cameras, and so they make 2 types of lenses, but we don't really count the medium format camera. Because I don't know what the numbers are, but I gotta believe 95 to 99% of the people who use Fuji cameras are using their X series cameras. They're not using the medium format cameras. Those cameras are fantastic cameras, but they're just not practical for most full-time shooters, or certainly not practical if you're an amateur or a hobbyist. So you're using the X line, and the X line is the only line really that they have, right? They have the medium format lenses, but that doesn't apply to us. They only have the X line of lenses. And what does this mean? This means that if you buy a Fuji camera, you're buying an X camera, and it could be this camera, the very best camera they make, the X-T4, or it could be an X-T30, which is my backup camera, or it could be one of the brand new ones that are the size of a deck of cards. But it doesn't matter what you buy, this lens is going to fit on it. That's huge. That's huge because Fuji only makes crop sensor. They make the medium format, but again, that doesn't really apply to us. Everything else is crop sensor, and they use the same mount for everything. So it doesn't matter what Fuji camera you buy, you can always use your lenses. And this is huge when it comes to upgrading. Right? When I was thinking about making the switch to mirrorless, and I thought, well, I guess I can switch to the new Canon mirrorless, I was going to eventually have to buy new lenses because I was going from a DSLR to a mirrorless. And so eventually I would want the mirrorless lenses. And also Canon makes full frame, and they also make crop sensor. So if you want a wide angle lens for your crop sensor camera, that lens won't work on your full frame camera. So now you've got a lens that doesn't work if later you decide to make the jump to full frame. Now, I know it sounds weird because what I'm saying is that Canon offers you so many different varieties that it's actually a bad thing. And that's not true. I mean, variety is good. But it's kind of like Apple. right? Fuji's kind of like Apple in that they have picked their lane and they stay in their lane. And if you just stay with them, they're going to keep you right there running smooth in their lane. And you're not going to have to worry about, oh, well, you know, I've got a Windows computer and now I've got to do all these other things to it. You know, if you have an Apple's computer, you don't have to do that. Apple just takes care of itself. So it's kind of like that. Fuji is like the Apple of cameras. Just get yourself an X camera and you're good. You're always going to be able to buy new bodies and your lenses are going to transfer and you're going to be just fine. Number 8 on my list of things that Fuji gets right has got to be price. Again, I made a video about this and you just can't beat the price of a Fuji camera. When I was looking at making my upgrade and I was thinking about staying with Canon, I could get the Fuji X-T4 body and a great lens for less than the cost of just getting the body from Canon. I think I got 2 lenses for less than the cost of just getting the body from Canon. Their ability to aggressively price their gear is amazing. And it's good gear, and it's solid gear, and it looks great, and it's fun to shoot, and it has great color, and it does all these other things. And then on top of all of that, it's unbelievably inexpensive. What does the X-T4 cost now? Like $1,400 for the body? That's ridiculous. $1,400 for the very best body that Fuji makes? I mean, even if you want to get their medium format line, right? Their new one, the body is $6,000, which, oh my gosh, $6,000 is crazy. Yeah, but it's medium format. Go price some other medium format digital cameras and see what they come in at. You just can't beat the price. And you know, a lot of times that's the thing that rises to the top above everything else, and it's why I'm doing it last on the list of things that Fuji gets right. Is that, you know, we can waffle and go back and forth about this thing and that thing, and do I want this camera? And then you get to the price and you go, whoa. You know, it's like buying a car. You're like, oh, I like this, I like that. And how much is that car? Well, let's take a look at that car. Well, that's the way it is with Fuji. You simply can't ignore them. You can't ignore them at that price point. All right, that's the 8 things that I think Fuji just knocks out of the park. But there are still 3 things that I think that they do wrong, or at least that I think they could improve on. Number 1, and I've talked about this so much, is ergonomics. You pay a price with Fuji when you get this incredible style and this incredible functionality. And the price is ergonomics. You can see on my camera here, if you can see this, I have an aftermarket grip, right? Now you can buy the grip that has the batteries built into it, but then it makes this thing so huge like a brick, and I'm really trying to keep my weight down. So I bought an aftermarket grip for the camera just to give me a little more push out here so I could grab this camera more firmly. And I know I haven't shot a wedding with it yet. I haven't shot a long day. But when I'm holding it, it rocks right back into my palm right here. And this corner hits me right in the palm. And I guarantee you this is going to be a problem. There's probably going to be a time when I'm going to put a piece of foam or something right here to give me more cushioning here. And I know that people in the comments are going to say, well, you're supposed to support the camera with your left hand, Blu-ray. Yes, but when you're supporting the camera with your left hand and you're operating 2 dials on the front of the camera, you're operating the zoom and you're operating the aperture, you're going to have to take some weight on your right hand so that you can take the weight off of this hand so you can operate the lens, which means you're taking all the weight here. So they don't have a big grip. Now, oddly enough, they do this with their more expensive cameras, right? They do it with the top of the line camera that they make in the X form factor, or at least it was the top of the line a few years ago. They haven't upgraded yet, the XH1. And they do it with the new medium format camera that they come out. It also has a huge grip on it. So it's just interesting to me that they haven't done that with their XT line yet. And I've got to put this aftermarket grip on it, but it's a great grip. You know, it's on my gear page. It's inexpensive, and I really feel like it gives me a better grip on the camera. So ergonomics is a problem. The trigger being on top of the camera here instead of being forward on the camera here. It would be better if it was forward, but if it was forward, you'd have to have a bigger grip, which they don't do. So I would really like to see, say, the XT5 to come out with a bigger built-in grip. And maybe you could put a bigger battery in that grip, solve that problem too. All right, number 2 on my list of things that Fuji doesn't get right is the battery door. The battery door on the Fuji, and also the side door where you keep your cards, is very hard. You've got to get in there with your fingernail, right? and pop it open. And if you're at an event or a wedding and you've got to quickly change your battery, you don't want to have to get in there and be like, let me just get in there. Let me get in there and change the battery. Or you have a card that goes full on you or whatever. You're like, let me change the card. Wait, let me get the thing. Ah, I got it. No. Right, Canon has this pop door where you just go pop slap and it pops right open. You can change a card in a Canon so fast. Pop slap opens right up. But not on the Fuji. On the Fuji, you still got to get in there and just dig it with a fingernail. So I really wish that they would fix this. Now, is this a big problem? No. But for the purposes of this list, I couldn't just have a list that was everything great about Fuji. I had to look for what are the things that I don't like about Fuji, and this is one of them. But is it a deal breaker? By no means is it a deal breaker. It's just a little minor thing. I just wish it was easier to get into the battery compartment and to get into the card department. All right, the final thing on my list of areas that Fuji gets something wrong is, again, not a deal breaker by any means. It's kind of minor. But one of the things I love about the X-T4 is that you can lock these two big wheels up here, right? These two knobs. So you can lock your ISO and you can lock your shutter speed so that you can't turn them by mistake. And this is wonderful. But what I really wish is that when you locked these two, it also locked the dials that are underneath. So you have a drive selection button underneath here, and you have a drive, and you have a your movie and your stills selector here, and they're on the front of the camera right here. Here's the one, and here's the other where you do them, right? And I love that the still movie selector is up here. You can just instantly swap it, really quick to movie mode. You don't have to go in the menu system or anything like that. The drive selector button, I guess I don't know if other photographers are different, but I almost never change my drive selection button. I'm in single shot 99% of the time. So I really don't even need this necessarily up here. But it's here, and that's great. But here's what's bad. It doesn't lock down. So I keep my camera stored like this in my bag, not like this. I keep it stored like this. That way I can just grab it and bring it out. If you store it like this, bringing it out is harder. So I keep it stored like this and grab it like this, right? And when I do that, a little piece of the bag catches this, plop, and changes my drive selection. And sometimes I don't notice until it's too late. I was shooting a headshot recently, and every time I took a picture, it was popping my flash twice. And I couldn't figure out why the flash was popping twice. And it wasn't until after the session was over that I realized that I hit the drive selection button and it was double shooting. So I got a picture that was well exposed, and I got a picture that was black, and a picture that was well exposed, and a picture that was black. And I thought, wow, it'd be great if this locks. It's funny that it doesn't lock when everything else locks, right? Why didn't they also fix it? It's the same button. Just have that button lock everything on the stack, right? Again, a minor thing. I mean, if this is your only problem with Fuji, you really don't have a problem with Fuji. And I had to look for these things. All right, that's it. That's my list. The 8 things that Fuji does well and wonderful, and the 3 things that I kind of wish that they would fix a little bit. Again, don't forget to check out my podcast. Be sure and join my group on Facebook, and give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment. I love the more comments. I will always reply to your comments if you ask me a question. So absolutely reply in the comments section, and subscribe to the channel and help me keep this channel alive. Thanks for watching.